Hello friends, welcome back. Today I'm talking about the books that I'm planning to read in September. And interestingly enough, for me anyway, but probably not for those of you who follow me because I read litfic, this month is looking to be quite fantasy heavy. I guess I'm in a very particular mood. We are coming into the Burr months, the September, October, November, as I like to call them, the best months. I'm feeling like cozying down, and apparently I'm into the idea of a little bit of fantasy, or a lot of it. But there is one book that is litfic, and it is an arc from NetGalley, and I really have to read it, and I'm actually really excited to read it, and I believe it has been longlisted for the Booker Prize this year as well. So I've read a couple of this author's books already with kind of mixed feelings about them, but I'll get into it in a second. So this book that I'm talking about is Playground by Richard Powers. So as I've mentioned, I've read a couple of his books. So I've read The Overstory and I've read Bewilderment, and both books are very kind of eco-positive, eco-conscious literary fiction. I'm sure there's a name on that genre, I just don't personally know it. His writing is really lush and wonderful, and you can tell that he has incredible respect and love for the natural world, and me too. So here we are. So The Overstory, I felt like started really strong and then kind of petered out a bit for me. I think the very beginning of that book, where there's a story about a man photographing a tree, that sits very strongly in my brain, and I loved that. I thought it was a really strong start. I really thought it was going to be a 5-star book. It wasn't in the end. And then Bewilderment I really loved as well, and he writes the kind of books that are really quotable, really just on point with the language that he uses, and very well thought out. I think he's an excellent writer, but I'm hoping for me that this one is the one that I can say I finally just really love everything about it. So what's this about? 12-year-old Evie Beaulieu sinks to the bottom of a swimming pool in Montreal, strapped to one of the world's first aqualungs. Ina Arroyo grows up on naval bases across the Pacific with art as her only home. Two polar opposites at an elite Chicago high school bond over a 3,000-year-old board game. Raffi Young will get lost in literature, while Todd Keen's work will lead to a startling AI breakthrough. They meet on the history-scarred island of Makati in French Polynesia, whose deposits of phosphorus once helped to feed the world. Now the tiny atoll has been chosen for humanity's next adventure, a plan to send floating autonomous cities out onto the open sea. But first, the island's residents must vote to greenlight the project or turn the sea standers away. Set in the world's largest ocean, this awe-filled book explores that last wild place we have yet to colonize in a still unfolding oceanic game, and interweaves beautiful writing, rich characterization, profound themes of technology and the environment, and a deep exploration of our shared humanity in a way only Richard Powers can. I am expecting really great things from this book. I love the idea that it's written from multiple perspectives again. The Overstory was. I think Bewilderment very much stuck to kind of one, if not two perspectives, but this one seems much more broad as well. I love the idea of like colonizing the ocean as well. So I was watching this travel show with my mom the other evening, and I believe it was the Netherlands. A lot of it is below sea level, so they have a lot of struggles with flooding. There was a dairy farm that they had on the sea, and so it rose and fell with the tides and wasn't susceptible to flooding, and I thought that was a really great idea. It was also something that was sort of spoken about in Julia Armfield's last novel, Private Rights, about like water cities. I think it's a really something that's probably going to be looked into seriously in the future. Just as an aside, I don't agree with dairy farming. I just thought the idea of having it on the water was really clever. So yeah, that is my sort of literary fiction aside now for the month. And so then we're on to my first fantasy book, and this is the book that I really want to focus on most in September. It is an absolute mammoth of a book. The book I'm speaking of course, is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. So this is the fourth book in the Stormlight Archive series, and these books are gigantic. So let me see, Oathbringer according to Goodreads is 1,243 pages. So yeah, it's quite the chunk. So this, as I've mentioned, is the fourth book in this series. I have currently read the 3 main novels and one of the novellas, and I still have to read Dawn Shard, which is another novella between book 3 and 4, and I'm planning to do that this week, and then straight into this next month. And obviously it's the fourth book in a series, so it's quite difficult to speak about, but broadly this series is quite incredible in its scope and actually what it achieves. There's a reason that Brandon Sanderson is considered one of the masters of modern fantasy. His writing is incredible, and I know he pumps out a lot of books, but there's quality in them, which is incredible. It's not just all quantity. So these books are set in a world where there are these very extreme storms, and they pass over quite frequently, and they're quite dangerous, but also the people in these worlds are able to harness a lot of power from them, and there are a lot of like warring factions. There's a lot of different POVs. It's really interesting. It weaves in mental health and philosophy and has these great character dynamics and these great family dynamics. There's such great magic. It's so clever. It's so well done, and I'm really excited to read this. I have a bit of fire under me, especially because book 5, Wind and Truth, is out in December, and I want to read that when it comes out. So I gotta get a bit of fire under me now and get going with that. I'm really looking forward to getting back into it, especially now that the days are getting that little bit shorter. The evenings are longer, the days are shorter. I'm excited about that. And yeah, so that is the second book that I want to read next month, and will probably take me about 2 weeks. So I don't want to be too tough on myself with the rest of the books. How I make my TBRs generally is I just pluck from my shelves that I'm kind of feeling. So if you're here a while, you know that I've been trying to read all of the books on my physical TBR. As things stand, I have 70. I think by the end of August I will probably have 69, if not 68. So we're getting there. And so I've chosen 4 books from my shelves. One of them is actually a reread, which I will explain in a minute. The next book I'm going to speak about is, I believe, a young adult book, and I've never read any books by this author, but I feel like I will really love her books, and I believe she has a new book out at the moment, or coming out very soon. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Ava Reid, and the book I'm talking about, of course, is A Study in Drowning, and I believe that this was published last year. I bought it brand new anyway, and I think that was last year, and I still haven't read it. I meant to get around to it in the darker months, and I just didn't for some reason, so I've saved it, and now we're coming into September. So I also just think this cover is really beautiful, and the end pages are gorgeous as well. I'm sold. What does that even say? The only enemy is the sea. Okay, Ava, okay. What's it about? Effie has always believed in fairy tales. She's had no choice. Since childhood, she's been haunted by visions of the Fairy King and found solace only in the pages of Angarad, Emrys Mirrodin's beloved epic about a mortal girl who falls in love with the Fairy King and then destroys him. Effie's tattered copy is all that's keeping her afloat through her stifling first term at her prestigious architecture college. Have we got some dark academia? So when the late author's family announces a contest to redesign his house, Effie feels certain that this is her destiny. But Heraith Manor is an impossible task, a musty, decrepit estate on the brink of crumbling into a hungry sea. And when Effie arrives, she finds she isn't the only one who's made a temporary home there. Preston Hillary, a stodgy young literature scholar, is studying Mirrodin's papers and is determined to prove her favourite author is a fraud. As the two rival students investigate the reclusive author's legacy, piecing together clues through his letters, books and diaries, they discover that the house's foundation isn't the only thing that can't be trusted. There are dark forces, both mortal and magical, conspiring against them, and the truth may bring them both to ruin. I actually didn't even realise it, but lately I have been asking a lot for like books that give crumbling mansion on a cliff, and I didn't realise that I actually had one on my shelves. This is very much giving crumbling mansion on a cliff. I hadn't actually read the blurb since last year, so I kind of forgot what it was about. I knew there was something about architecture in there, but that's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to reading that one now. So that's for September. And then I have what is apparently another young adult fantasy, and that book is A Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saft. So I just kept seeing this book on BookTube, and I am definitely a victim of that, and I somehow ended up with this book in my possession, and now I'm gonna have to read it, but I'm looking forward to reading it, so that's okay. It's also really floppy. We don't tend to get floppy books in Ireland, so that's nice. In the Gothic town of Wigton, Maggie Welty lives alone in an old creaking manor, but when she spots the Hala, a legendary fox creature, she knows the half-moon hunt will soon follow. Whoever kills the Hala will earn fame and riches. While Maggie is the best sharpshooter in town, she needs the help of an alchemist to be in with a chance of winning. Enter Wes Winters. Fired from every apprenticeship, this is his last chance. Maggie and Wes make an unlikely team, a charismatic but troubled boy and a girl who has endured life in a town that never welcomed her. But the pair are drawn together as they uncover dark magic that could be the key to winning the hunt, if they survive that long. It literally describes the town as a gothic town, and I've definitely been feeling gothic inspired books lately. There's something about this that sounds quite magical and is just tickling my fantasy right about now, so I'm really looking forward to picking this one up as well. And then the last two books, I'm not overextending myself this month because I am planning on reading a massive book. You will be surprised to learn, friends, that I'm not actually reading any Robin Hobb this month and haven't actually read any in August either. I've decided to put her aside just to get through Brandon Sanderson first. Anyway, I digress. The books that I'm planning, so they're part of a duology, and they are Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. So I've already read Six of Crows. Also, it really annoys me that these covers don't match. Like, this is stupid Netflix cover. They both have the Netflix sticker. Why does it need to have the Netflix cover as well? So I listened to Six of Crows a few years ago and I did quite enjoy it, and I meant to read Crooked Kingdom quite soon after, but I just never got around to it. And so here we are. Now, I don't actually remember a whole lot about Six of Crows. So my first exposure to Leigh Bardugo was the Shadow and Bone series on Netflix. And if you know anything about that relative to the series, in that TV show, it mixes together Shadow and Bone and this duology. When I did eventually pick up Shadow and Bone to read it, I was missing quite a few characters, and in my opinion, the better characters. So I want to get back to these again. I know this is very much a heist novel. There's plenty to do with found family. There's plenty to do with magic and fun, and it's just really fun young adult fantasy, and I really like Leigh Bardugo's writing. There's nothing too sort of profound about these books, but they're just good fun. So I want to reread Six of Crows before I get to Crooked Kingdom, because as I've mentioned, I cannot remember anything about it. I remember some of the characters, I remember some of what they did, but honestly, friends, I remember very little about them. So those are the last two books that I'm planning to read in September. I feel like even visually these books give off a certain vibe, like they're all very dark. I'm looking forward to them. I was tempted to add one more book onto my TBR for September, but given the length of the Brandon Sanderson book, I said I would be kind to myself and not put myself under too much pressure, because lately I've actually been quite good with reading my TBRs. I'm quite proud of myself. Anyway, friends, let me know, what are you planning on reading next month? I was about to say, are you excited for October? Because I'm always excited for October, but those of you in the northern hemisphere, are you excited for autumn, or are you feeling like, I don't know, I like a bit of summer? And those of you in the southern hemisphere are about to head into spring, so how are you feeling about that? Let me know what you're planning on reading. Give me some recommendations if you can think of anything that's like very heavily gothic inspired. Let me know down in the comments below. Otherwise, if you want to see more videos from me and you want to see how I get on with these books in September, don't forget to subscribe. And otherwise, pals, thanks so much as ever for watching, and I'll chat to you next week in another video. Bye bye.